Tahu Talks, where we dive into the rich tapestry of Ngāi Tahu stories. In this episode, we're diving into an inspiring story with the Kazi, Mananui Ramsden, from Ngāti Huikai of Koukourarata. Mananui is a proud advocate for the taiao, his hapū, and wider community. In this episode, he shares his unique journey from growing up overseas to returning home with his whānau. He talks about where his deep love for the taiao comes from and his dreams for a future where many like him can thrive. Stay tuned as we explore what it truly means to protect and celebrate our whenua and how one person's story can truly inspire us all. No mai haramai ki Tahu Talks. Welcome, Mananui Ramsden.
Hey, tēnā koe, tēnā tātou.
Thank you for freeing up some time. I know you're a busy man. You've got a lot of kaupapa going on, so we really appreciate you stopping by and just having a chat today on Tahu Talks, celebrating our tahutanga. You're very well known there in the community, which is why I wanted to invite you today to have a kōrero and a lot of the mahi that you do around the pā, and then even in your roles that have to do with the whenua and taiao. So I'm really excited to have you here today.
I'm excited to be here. I'm pretty nervous as well. I've watched your previous kai kōrero in admiration and often discovery as well, not knowing some aspects about them. So hopefully I can add value to the long line of kai kōrero.
Nā reira, Mananui. Nohia tō ingoa, i ahu mai nohia.
Pātai pai tēnā. I was born in 1988, and when I was born, my parents were gifted two names to choose from Pauabani Manawatūtera. And he gifted my mum and my dad Te Whare Rākau after my Uncle Tom, which is my taua's brother. Te Whare Rākau, and he also gifted us the name Mananui, which was his brother. And so my parents chose Mananui, and I'm incredibly grateful. You know, I've also hung on to the name Te Whare Rākau. I'm particularly passionate about that. I've named my house Te Whare Rākau, and I've also named my business Te Whare Rākau. So, yeah, kau tēnā.
Raue. And tell me about your upbringing. What was your upbringing like? Where'd you grow up?
Yeah, it's a good question. The story is my sister and I were actually kind of dragged around the globe and by our mum and dad.
True.
My father worked in renewable energy systems, and he sort of established his career in Australia, where I was born. I was born in Gosford, just north of Sydney, and we were there for all of, I think, 2 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
And then off to another contract all throughout the outback of Te Whenua Moimoia. And by the age of 6, we were further afield. We lived in Malaysia and China as well. My father working in big renewable energy, hydro scheme, energy contracts. Yeah, and we were lucky enough to basically follow him around the planet. I look back on it and I know how fortunate my sister and I were, because we were always in places where different language was a normal thing. So learning the reo of the place became quite normal for us, and also seeing the culture at place, whether it be a community custom or religion. We were really wealthy with experience and exposure to the places in which we lived. I remember living in China, and the whole kāinga in this particular area. We lived in the Sichuan province, where, like, you know, all the chili flavoured kai, the good kai. If you wanted to eat, you had to eat that.
Oh, true.
And so we got to pick up a strong command and appreciation for the differences that exist on this planet. And it was super normal. And by the time I was 8, my mum and dad made a pretty important decision to get their worldly children, kind of free range children, running all around the place, through awa, through mountains, through different communities abroad, to come home and strengthen our connection to our papa. And I'm really grateful. My sister and I are immensely privileged as a result of that decision that my mum and dad made, and my aunties and uncle.
When you moved back to Aotearoa, you came straight to Ōtautahi?
Nah. we moved to be close to where our support bases were. And I mean that with aroha to our whānau here, but for my father, his support bases was his brother and his two sisters. His two sisters lived in Poneke. His brother lived in Tāmaki and Manurewa. So we moved to the Kapiti coast, just in the greater Wellington region. What it was for me personally was I was craving tōku ao Māori. I was craving my identity. And my father was still working those kinds of contracts. And so my mother, my Australian mother, was the one that actually cultivated, really put the effort in for my sister and I in terms of our reo. In terms of, actually, kapahaka was a massive foundation for my sister and I. And then me personally, taiaha, maurākau. So, I just went head first into it, off the back of, like we always did in every other nation. So, yeah.
I think that's cool that your mama wanted to reintroduce you to your identity, to your whakapapa Māori. With your whānau living in Wellington, i te kōrero, i te reo Māori?
Etahi wā. E kare ko te nui, ko te wā, ko te reo Māori, te reo mātua. Ki ia kaika. Kaha ātitia me iri hāpiti ki te kōrero tō tātou nei reo rangatira. But the primary foundation that I was raised on was, in Aotearoa, was Pākehā. And so thinking about my mum, who fell in love with this man from the mountains, from Te Waipounamu, who was largely not at home, often working abroad or further afield in these sort of contractual, those who have worked in mining and lived in mining and kids that grew up in that space know exactly what I'm talking about. He still had to earn money. So I really am, I'm really grateful for my mother's courage, a Pākehā woman, for the love of her children, the development of her children, often put herself in really uncomfortable positions in a whānau like ours. So, my primary sort of entrance into my identity came by way of kapahaka.
Oh, yeah.
In te whakaohoake, a kapa in the Parapara Umu region.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we threw ourselves into that and, caught the bug hard. Yeah, so kapahaka was the starting entry, and then for me, I really ran with maurākau.
Who did you learn maurākau under?
Koro mitamuhi. When I was 8, ngā uri o Merenia, basically my taua's lot, we did a lap of Te Waipounamu. We did this Le Grand Tour in 1996. And basically what our auntie was trying to do was keep that fire within us to connect alive and strengthen. And that's obviously what led to my paps bringing us home. I think that if it wasn't for those formative, really important experiences with my whānau, it would have been really, really hard. Yeah. One of the greatest tragedies for ngā uri o Merenia, for my whānau line, is our elders' parents, so my grandfather, Eric Ramsden, and my taua, Merenia, Manawatu Te Rā, they both passed away super early, cuz Merenia passed away around about by the time my father was 2 from tuberculosis.
True. Oh, yeah.
In like 1950. And Eric passed away by the time my father was 13. And so my papa was the pōtiki of those 5 children. The older siblings had basically established themselves in their paths.
Yeah.
Whereas my father was still super young, and they lost everything. They lost their connection to their whakapapa. They lost their Pākehā father, who was a man in the 50s raising 5 Māori kids.
Wow.
Who could kōrero Māori.
Wow.
Who had a strong command for our culture, who held his mana well, but also held the space of his uri really well as well. So to have lost that, I think that's the great tragedy of my whānau. And so when I think about my papa, when I think about not so much Irihāpiti and Tiawea, certainly my uncle Rangi, their whole life was framed off ko waio no heao. So, you know, you fast forward 4, 5 decades, my paps was super deliberate in downloading that into Mihiata, my big sis, and myself. Whether it's books and books of whakapapa or legitimate kaupapa experiences, wherever the heck we were. So yeah, that's us.
Man. Can you tell me some of your fondest memories at your marae of Koukourarata? Beautiful place, by the way. Yeah.
Is there anywhere else?
I'm not going to say because, you know, it's whānau watching.
Yeah. And look, may we keep that kind of banter alive, eh? May we keep that pride of place at the centre of everything we do and have a bit of fun. Yeah, look, I've got heaps of memories, endless memories of Koukourarata. I think there's nothing quite like your first experience properly going home and moving home and being home. I'd been there in 1996, as I had said, but it wasn't until 1999 that we moved home.
Oh, yeah.
And, what an experience. Well, we lived in town and we had our property, we have our whenua at Koukourarata as well, and so we were largely back and forth, and if anyone knows us, we camp.
Yeah.
We do it pretty hearty, and it's very normal to not have a running water or a shower for us. I love living like that personally. As I get older, I realise, it was we had a unique upbringing. But yeah, some of the best memories, there's a lot. Probably the core memory that I hang on to this day is growing up with my cousins.
Yeah.
Knocking about with them and kind of having those real formative experiences together. And we were really lucky because we had a whole forest of elders above us who were tōtara, who are tōtara, really deliberately cultivating us in a safe way, in a way that made us walk away with our chests high and our chins high, you know, to be huikai, to be from Koukourarata, to be kaitahu.
Yeah.
We weren't even limited at that. We often talked about waitaha. We often talked about māmoe. And when you're at a place like Koukourarata, you have waves of migrations etched into every corner of that pā.
Who was the upoko back then?
Oh, the one and only Uncle Charlie Crofts.
Yeah.
Uncle Charlie Crofts, may he rest in peace, eh? Auntie Mary.
Yeah.
Here's something for you. You know, I look at just that timeline that I've shared with you for my whānau's, you know, I guess, presence at home, that is. Uncle Charlie and Auntie Mary have been holding it down for our people since the 60s. Yeah. In that whare, when it was overgrown, when the hall was full of crap, bird poo, you name it. And that whānau, plus with other whānau present, but when you ask me who was the upoko and who was the one that as young people we were actively watching, Uncle Charlie, and he was propped up by the pā.
Beautiful. Yeah, no, I've got fond memories of Uncle Charlie as well. Went along to his tangihanga too, and it was great to see, you know, all of the whānau who turned out for him, because, yeah, he rangatira, he momo.
Koiapu. That's right, I remember the phone call. In my life, if I receive phone calls at certain times of the day from certain people, I can almost guarantee you someone's passed away.
Yeah.
And so this was that day, and Uncle had passed away, and my starting point was a place of deficit, going, we need to fill the pai, the pai karanga, the pai kōrero, the pai manaki. We need to do this, we need to do that. By the end of that tangihanga, that takiauwe, I realised, and we realised, that actually we're in a place of abundance.
Yeah.
And we did our uncle just, and we sent him into the next life to the best of our ability at Huikai, at Koukourarata. You know, we had kai kōrero deep, we had kai karanga deep. The whare was always warm, there was always kai, and off the ball, you know, the wider ecosystem that is us, everyone was just pitching in and working, and yeah.
What's Koukourarata known for?
Other than its raw beauty
Yeah.
and of location and people, strong pragmatic leadership.
Yeah.
It's known for doing things our own way. It's known for protection of people, mokopuna. I'm thinking of kaiapoi at the moment. I'm thinking of our history shared with Tarauparaha.
Yeah. Matiaha.
Matiaha, kia ora. I'm thinking it's a place where our feet have always stood on, and not just the wave of kaitahu. Earlier, it is a place of ancient connection that our bloodlines have not left. That's what it means to me.
He momo kai no reira?
Oh, aye. Yeah, he momo kai.
So if someone was to, turn up to Koukourarata for the first time, what would we see on the tables kai-wise, Kasi?
I was asked this question, literally, it's funny you should say that, because I was asked to describe myself based on the resource on which I came from. And this was literally 2 days after burying Uncle Charlie at Te Kurareo, Taiao, in Rotoiti. And all I can say is kutai.
Yeah.
Is kutai.
Hard.
There's an abundance of all sorts of other species, but the one cornerstone that hasn't changed is kutai. We've got some real showstopper species that have actually been impacted in recent generations, like the cockles, like our paua, and some fin species as well. But yeah, our legacy piece, as far as I'm concerned, definitely the kutai.
Yeah, I remember going over towards Koukourarata with my paua, and he'd go diving for mussels over there.
Man.
Is it still rich as over there?
Yeah, still goes hard.
Man.
It's like, okay, my mind's now gone to, we actually own and operate our own mussel farms.
Oh, where?
Hey, and he kama, those of us that are watching from further afield, kaupapa Māori, hapū iwi Māori, we do 13-month farm cycles of kutai, and we produce some of the best. Our waters well and truly adapt to cultivate great kai there, and in particular those species. So yeah, it's mean. I remember, in fact, that's how I learned how to dive too.
How?
Was getting kutai with Uncle Dion, Uncle Tim Manawatu, Uncle Jock, and of course my father, and finding the spots where you can get it at the right tides, and or there you go, boy, get us a feed kind of vibes. So yeah, mean place.
Where did your love for the whenua come from, and for the taiao?
I got 2 tree hugger parents.
Yeah.
My dad was a deer colour, forestry, had an insane command for our native forests and our kai in those spaces. I mean, when his dad died, he was sent to forestry school, and he basically went there as a young teen and didn't leave that kaupapa until he was well into his 20s. And by that time, he literally lived in the mountains. From the west coast all the way down to southwestern. This bloody Mary, yeah. And then my mum's just a tree hugger. She could grow anything.
True.
She'd be sitting there with a durry just looking at a plant. The next thing you know, you go check her bag, and she's got heaps of cuttings in her bag from wherever we've been.
Man.
Yeah, so those are the kinds of people that raised me, and so the conversations was always about the taiao.
Yeah, because I watched a TEDx of yours a few years back, and very passionate kōrero about the taiao and mahinga kai and your mahi within the farms with ikan.
Yep.
How was that role for you?
Looking back at it now, it was just perfect.
Yeah.
The timing was right, not only from a personal perspective. I threw myself at the kaupapa, but this is an important point that I think we need to reconnect with as a nation. There's no hiding that we have an issue when it comes to water quality and water quantity. That's not new. For decades, across the board, whether you're a tree hugger or an irrigator, or you're a Māori or you're an academic, whatever, we have been having this conversation for decades.
Yeah.
decades long, and the taiao was telling us. And so at that particular time in 2017, I had been at a hui prior to that on my father's behalf, while he was starting, getting really ill. I went on his behalf to different kaupapa, and what I saw was, framed from my lens, we've got a claim, we've got rangatiratanga, we have never moved, we hold the space well, yet we've got people processing at us.
Yeah.
And that was to do with the earthquake recovery, the Kaikoura one that destroyed Central Port in Wellington. It basically put the spotlight on whakaraupo and meant overnight Jerry Brownlee delivered a global consent to intensify the dredging of that harbour by 300%. And of course it had been happening for over 100 years, kei te pai tēnā, but the ability to increase it by 300%, to barely have regard for our kai, our whakapapa, our pre-existing property rights to do with those taoka that we've already won in the court of law against Auntie Lizzie. Yeah, that really inspired me, eh? And so I took that into this role and just dove head first.
Yeah.
And the synergy that I was talking about, the other like kind of perfect storm that was that regulation had matured from the ground up. And for the first time in history, landowners who farmed needed a consent to exist.
Yeah.
Because, hey, te waiho was poked. And still is, by the way. And so we went from 350 farms to about 2,000 in the catchment. And then around about 11,000 in the whole of the takiwā, our takiwā, but Environment Canterbury's authority, largest authority in Aotearoa.
Wow.
And the difference was they could be nailing it from a nutrient management, from an irrigation management perspective, but if they were failing to address their impact to our mahi kakai, they would fail the whole thing. It's massive.
Yeah.
And so for me, I went in there with my bias. I went in there with my, oh man, these communities this, these communities that. And the only real sort of exposure I had with rural communities, other than coming from one, was on the footy field.
Oh, yeah.
So I found a community willing to embrace Te Ao Māori. I found a community willing to understand more and have brave conversations. It wasn't always fun. It was often really hard. But I would like to dispel the bullshit that is the narrative of Aotearoa at the moment. You know, the concept of having Māori overreach into resource management again and again and again, this concept of we're even being ignorant because the rural community needs to improve.
Yeah.
And for a time there in Aotearoa, we were making it happen. And so, yeah, perfect storm. I had no partner. I had no babies. I didn't have really any responsibilities. I just dove head first into it.
Yeah.
Head first into the kaupapa, and yeah, we killed it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And tell me about your role within your hapū. You're the chairperson?
Yep. Just started my second term as the chairperson of Te Runaka o Koukourarata. Massive privilege.
What does that mean to be the chairperson?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it also depends on who you talk to. For my own view on things, it's more than just chairing a meeting and supporting a group of executive and directors and staff to be at their best.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that every pa has a different nuance to that. I look at some pa, I look at Tuihiwi, they have a nupoko runaka. They have huge infrastructure, depth of really capable people, whether they're in the role or they're supporting the role. We found ourselves at a point where our elders were passing, our real talented crop were either not interested or it was pretty difficult to be in those roles. And I just happened to be Johnny on the spot.
Oh, yeah.
And really what I've found out the role has to be is it's one where you're actually on 24/7.
Yeah.
All night, all day, all weekend, all year round. It's one where it has a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
But pressure is a good thing because it means people are they're accounting on you, you know?
Yeah.
And that means you've got to do good things. And you've got to be able to always look at yourself in the mirror and say, was that good enough? I feel like that's all I do.
Yeah.
I don't always get it right. I don't always get it right. But I genuinely think that the real core of our success over the last few years actually has been the talent in the room.
Yeah.
And diversity of thought, experience of character has really led to a stabilising of the waka and moving in the right direction.
So how do you balance, like, being a chairperson and like, you know, being at home with your babies and stuff, whānau life and everything else that you have going on?
Yeah, it's a good question, and one that definitely needs to be talked about because, I look at all our leaders and us as hapū and iwi, we need to be really mindful of that particular thing.
Yeah.
Because they are our people. And we are real critical of our leadership. Rightfully so. At some points I'm always like, wait until you've been in that position before you do really double down on somebody. But when it comes to balance, I haven't nailed it whatsoever. A journey of finding balance for me looked like having to leave that job that I was talking about.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'd be in 1 hour, I'd move from my desk in the building of Environment Canterbury to the council floor, having to have conversations with their democratically appointed councillors that are really important, and then the following hour going back to my desk. And so I had to separate myself from that because I could see the burden it was putting on me, but also the conflict. I needed to be at my best for our pā, and I wasn't able to achieve that there. So what set about doing that was far less balance.
Yeah.
I had to start a business. I had to find my own source of income. And I had a huge learning curve around that. In terms of my whānau, basically the rule of thumb for me is if my babies, if my partner, if my mum, if my sister, her kids, and my cousins aren't okay, then I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And so those who know me know I do a lot of childcare. It's important to me.
Yep.
I get them up, I get them going. If they need me during the day, I find a way. And we work into the night, or we work all weekend, or I was listening to Aaron Hapuku talk the other day on Anton Matthews' podcast.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how confronting a period in his life was when he realised that when we look at our whare, the various sort of dimensions of that, you know, his was solely in te taha tinana, my bad, and his door was right there, and to gain access to his well-being or to gain access to his balance, meki, was through that. When that's restricted, then what?
Yeah.
So for me, I'm happiest when I am deep in a workout.
Oh, yeah.
I'm happiest when I can actually forge silence. I'm an introverted extrovert. I need quiet, and I don't get that a lot, so I carve that out for myself.
What does rangatira behaviour look like to you?
Oh, man. I don't know.
Ne?
Yeah, I don't know. The kupu itself is kia raranga, te tira maha. It's to be able to weave the various communities, the right communities together and set them forward. And I've seen it rolled out in so many different ways. So my I don't know comment is more just a challenge, because I've seen papatipu run by the kitchen. I've seen iwi run by the forest.
Yep.
By a big moana in the middle of the North Island. So I would love to be able to get to a point in life where I can completely tell you right now.
Yeah.
But I think that we need to not limit ourselves. We need to really think big around what does rangatira or rakatira behaviour mean and look like, because it's currently looking like you having the courage to open up a channel for our people to talk and to cultivate a wider understanding of ko waiau no hia'au amongst the masses, the ways in which we subscribe to information. So that's rangatira behaviour, cuz.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
What does a good leader look like?
I've always kind of had the whole unreluctant vibe.
Yeah. How do you mean?
Through obligation and responsibility, someone steps up.
Yeah.
If that makes sense?
Yes, it does.
There's always going to be the pick-me's.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be a place for that kind of energy. The best ones I've seen has been those who have had a look around, not like what they've seen, and gone, oh, well, here we go. And I think women do it real well.
Especially our Ngāi woman.
Especially our Ngāi woman. Shout out to our iwi that is propped up and held together by our Ngāi wahine.
Yeah.
By our wahine puta no i te motu. But for me personally, I always gravitated towards the manly men.
Yeah.
My uncles, the fellas who my dad would tell stories about. When push came to shove, you know, those are the ones. So yeah, I think that I think that there's a place for all of us. It's about unlocking our potential and recognizing it and allowing it to grow.
So what are you doing for mahi at the moment?
Got a few things on the boil.
Yeah.
A few pots on the boil. Like I said earlier,
What you got cooking?
Yeah. Oh, look, it's a feast. It's a feast focused on kaupapa delivered for hapū niwi. Full stop.
Oh yeah.
Full stop. It's about planting seeds to grow forests of trees of information and understanding to recanvas our papa yet again. So it functions perfectly.
Could you name for me an unsung hero from Koukourarata? Someone who always goes under the radar but does a lot to contribute to the pā. You know, that unsung hero that doesn't get enough mihi.
Yo. Oh, man, you're calling me out to start.
I know, it's hard just to name one name. There's probably plenty.
Because I don't know if you've noticed, we've got an incredible pā.
Of course,
and we've got a huge kāhui of givers.
Yeah. Okay, some unsung heroes.
Unsung heroes. One massive asset for us, and has been for some time now, is the likes of Carl Crofts.
Yeah.
Uncle Charlie's boy.
Yeah.
His coordination throughout our people, his vision, and his ability to get stuff done has been something that time and time again that I've really relied on and really watched with admiration.
Yeah.
But of course he's propped up by Marion and Shanika and Shara, and they in their own rights are no slouches.
Yeah.
And Auntie Miri. Another one is probably Nani Pera.
Oh yes.
Yeah, the cousin Nani Pera.
Yeah.
And Tekarai, who has recently come home. You know, if I think about them and I go back to those sort of primary formative huikai taka years for me, they were and are my heroes. Yeah, they embodied everything that I wanted to be like, and captured an essence, a wairua of what it meant to be mokopuna of tū te huarewa. Whether it's kapahaka, whether it's tito waiata, whether it's supporting people, even in their roles now, you know, to protect our pā and to keep people happy and healthy. I know they do a huge amount of mahi. I mean, you know, from Aroha in the kitchen to Gina Lee in the GM spot to Nigel, our caretaker. But Nigel's he Pākehā, yeah?
Yeah.
And I have never not seen him without a t-shirt that says Koukourarata on it.
Yeah.
And if there's ever something that's going on, Nigel's there.
Me.
Rain, hail, shine. The bro's there. So gotta give props to him. I gotta give props to our whānau that live in town.
Yeah.
You know, the karunas.
Mm.
And those who live further afield. We've got cousins all over the globe that actually hold it down for Koukourarata.
What are some things that you're doing different with your babies when it comes to raising them compared to how you grew up?
Oh, man, there's heaps, eh?
Yeah.
There's heaps of things.
So where?
Probably the most standout thing is te reo Māori.
Kia ora.
Yeah, we don't speak English to each other.
Kia ora.
We speak te reo. And that is something that I'm immensely grateful for with Shawnee. I'm immensely grateful for with Maya. Karemuhuia refuses to speak English to people, although she can kōrero English. Same with Waimihia. And
Raue, I love that.
Like the adage is, it takes one generation to remove that from an Indigenous person, from a Māori. It takes 3 to reclaim it. Well, that's true. You know, my mum and dad made that call to come home, basically sacrificing their careers, financial stability, to come home and reforge a new way. My sister and I dove into it, and then it's now the 3rd generation, our children, that are coming through that are the fruit of those efforts. We don't necessarily know when our lines lost te reo, but across the board, all my cousins are strong Reo speakers, and I'm just one of.
What type of legacy do you want to leave behind for your tamariki and your mukapuna o uri whakaheke?
Te ora. He mea nui tēnei pātai. Hō hunu rawa. Ekari, ko tāku ki a rātou, kai te whakaheke mai nei, me mau koe ki tō pepeha. So that they don't have to ever ask, ko wai au no hea au. Yeah. I was talking to a far more smarter brain than mine about that particular topic, and I sort of asked her that question, really? And you know, I could say, we have this taiao that sustains us, and we've got all these things sorted out. But the reality is that knowing exactly who you are and where you come from is all we need. Full stop.
Actual.
The main thing is that you know who you are and where you're from.
Because what do you think that does for you when you know who you are and you know where you come from?
It makes you very noisy and hui. I've just come from Tahiti, cuz.
Yeah.
And I've just come from a kaupapa where all the motu throughout Te Mananui were called to talk about the moana. And it was awesome, but it was also really illuminating and quite confronting.
Oh yeah?
At times as well.
What do you mean by that?
Man, it was 2025 and sitting there with one of the Canuck brothers from New Caledonia. 2023, the French government banned their language.
Real?
They're currently in a civil war.
No.
Where just having a protest gets you killed.
Fuck.
Or I was talking to some of our whānau from the Northern Mariana Islands, and they all look at us, you know, as people who have really done well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have to say yes.
Yeah.
Look, we can start this conversation in the deficit, but please let's focus on the abundance, because we can kōrero Māori, largely, and if we don't, we can go get it. We actually do have clout when it comes to causing effect, constitutional effect in this nation. We actually do. Yeah. Like I was talking about the Northern Mariana whānau, in 5 generations, they've had 5 colonisers. That's between, I don't know, the Yanks, the Germans, the Japanese, the so-and-sos and the so-and-sos. The way it was described to me was by this wahine that I was hanging out with while one of our young Pacific leader cohort was my great-great-grandfather had to get their heads around. That was the last point of knowledge holding had to get their heads around whatever nation was the first colonizer. Within one generation, it was a new one. And that repeated itself 5 times to today. And that was super humbling for me.
Yeah, it would.
It was intense. Another example would be, we hit this point in the conference in Moorea. I kind of hung around the governance kaupapa. There was several different kaupapa flying, but for me, it's like, there's no point talking about trees or fish if you ain't in control. And so I was at this kaupapa and I was listening to some of the Hokaanga actually talk. And of course, there was a French translator, there was a Tahitian translator, there was an English translator, and then there was te reo Māori kei te rere. And these kai gatherers, fishermen, were there, and they had a speaker on their behalf, this old wahine, and they were talking about how their ability to gain access to their resources, to simply sustain their whānaus, let alone earn money, was removed from them because, I'm not sure if you've ever seen those sort of picturesque bora bora whare on that vibe.
Yeah.
Because one of those things had turned up in their catchment.
Oh.
And we can't have you fellas fishing here.
Oh.
Because that's not what my client needs. Those kinds of chats. And I'm sitting there going, you got pre-existing property rights, bro.
Yeah.
Take him to court.
Yeah.
You know, if you need a hand, Kaitahu's got the story.
Man.
And look at us, we're still doing it. I'll never forget that.
It sounds like a hui where you all shared knowledge with each other and tools and resources on maintaining
Rangatiratanga.
Rawe.
Yeah. We were there to tackle some targets that were set by the UN. But really what happened was the exchange of culture in a way that only Polynesians can do. From the top left to right to the deep south that is us. And the real wānaka took place off the ball. It took place on the bus. It took place at the hotel. It took place around the pool, having kava sessions. and of course, what a privilege to sit with a lot of those people, with all of those people who are po in their homes. So yeah, rich, eh?
Hard.
Yeah.
Rawe.
Yeah, I think the main thing that I'm really interested in is watching our generation step up.
Yeah.
And e hara I te mahi māma, but most pā are seeing those signs where there's a rising of the tide of generations, of those who have largely received a lot of fruit from those elders of ours. And I guess for me, I'm really, really passionate about how do we, within our various different papatapu, how do we come together as a iwi as well? And how do we really evolve into a state where we are self-reliant, but also where we are deliberate with the partnerships and relationships that we struck up across te ao Māori, across te Mananui Yakiwa, and how do we take the communities that are actually reliant on us. I'm talking treaty partnership, I'm talking tangata tiriti, I'm talking providing a way that is ours to be a solution in these really difficult times. I think we're actually on the cusp of that.
Yeah.
And our generation is to be able to arrange our pā into the foundation that they've always meant to be. We've had to tidy up a lot. We've had to put a lot back together. We've done things to the best of our abilities with what we've had at the time. There isn't a better time than now for all of us to go, righto, Kazi, how are we going to do this, and let's do it together. What are you strong at? What am I strong at? And how can I help you? How can you help me?
Yes.
And be about that positive evolution, that change. Be about it until the wheels fall off.
Yes,
yeah,
love it.
That's what I think that I believe in. How do we turn up for each other, eh?
Kia ora. Well, on that note, cousin Mananui Ramsden, thank you so much. This has been such a rich corridor. You're the perfect person for a podcast. Was this your first podcast as well?
Yes. And I'm not doing one next week as well. No, this is my first podcast, proper podcast. I've done those things on the radio and
yeah.
crap, but yeah.
No, perfect. Because ka taia te kōrero, love that. Big mihi to you for all your mahi, for, you know, your hapū, our iwi, our communities. And it's, I learnt a lot about you today, which is why I love doing these podcasts, because I just love learning about people's stories and their journeys and how they became to be the person that they are. And after hearing their stories, a lot makes a lot of sense. Nā reira, ngā mihi mata kui ki a koe. It's Kazi.
Tēnā koe, tēnā tātou whiu.
So that's another episode of Tahu Talks. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the episode, leave a comment, push that like button, subscribe to the channel as well, and I'll be back with another episode next time. Thanks for your time. See you. Bye.